Moin Giorno, Servusla und Hallo Grüezi. Moin moin, liebe Whisky-Freunde. Ein minimal anderer Livestream heute, nämlich ohne den Paddy, der ist nämlich gerade noch im Urlaub, beziehungsweise ist auf dem Weg zurück in meine virtuellen Arme nach Bremen und wir machen, wie gesagt, wie immer, einen langsamen und entspannten Start, damit ihr alle Zeit habt, anzukommen, euch hinzusetzen, euch einen Whisky einzuschenken. Und bevor ich euch falsche Hoffnungen mache, wir werden einen englischen Livestream machen heute Abend. Ich werde nämlich gleich meine lieben Gäste reinholen. Und da die kein Deutsch sprechen, möchten wir natürlich einen geselligen Abend verbringen. Und ich werde einen englischen Livestream machen heute. Ich hoffe mal, das Mikrofon. Ich muss mal eben hier alles noch ein bisschen in der Technik zu gerade rücken. Sieht man das Mikrofon? Alles klar. Wunderbar vorbereitet heute. Genau. Schönen guten Abend, Andrea. CG Brain am Start, New Spirit Whisky. Schönen guten Abend. Ich hole jetzt, wie gesagt, unsere Gäste rein. Wir haben das Team der Feddie Distillery aus Norwegen heute dabei. Es sind aber Schotten und deswegen werden wir auch einen klassischen, schönen Whisky-Abend haben. Und ja, damit wir quasi uns schon mal ein bisschen eingrooven können, hole ich die drei erstmal rein und wir werden einfach ein bisschen langsam starten und entspannt in den Abend gehen und mal gucken, was denn so auf uns zukommt, was denn da so passiert. Schön, dass ihr da seid auf jeden Fall. Freut mich, dass ein paar Bock haben, heute Abend mit uns Whisky zu trinken am Samstag bei der Hitze. Und ja, gerne immer kommentieren. Ich werde versuchen, ein bisschen zu switchen zwischen Deutsch und Englisch und werde versuchen, ein bisschen was zu übersetzen ab und zu mal. Bitte zögert nicht in die Kommentare zu schreiben, wenn da irgendwie mehr gewünscht ist oder weniger, weil das natürlich auch für mich so ein bisschen ein minimaler Brainfuck ist, wenn ich die ganze Zeit zwischen zwei Sprachen hin und her switchen werde. Aber es funktioniert natürlich auch. Von daher, wenn sich jemand berufen fühlt zu übersetzen, natürlich gerne simultan im Livestream kommentieren. Aber wir holen erstmal hinein unsere drei Schotten aus Norwegen. So, back to English. Guys, I'm really happy that you are here tonight, joining me for a dram or two or three or even more. So basically, the windows are almost correctly labeled. We have Lewis and we have Craig and Iona from the Isle of Fedje. I hope that I pronounced it right this time. Cool. Yeah, we'll have like a bit of a slow start, so everybody can settle in and come in and have a dram and say hello. So we're basically looking at. Oh, Manu, aren't you having your own live stream right now? I thought you were working, but okay, cool. No worries. It's a very small whiskey community. It's like a little village in Germany, so everybody knows everybody. It's really cool.
Nice.
Cool. So it's a really great community we're having. Hi Petra. So loads of people always coming in from we know from our tastings and we know from different whiskey exhibitions and obviously from co-workers and other whiskey geeks. So
this is from all around Germany.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like we have. I know that people are here from Eastern Germany, from Southern Germany, as far as I know. So everybody, feel free to wave their regional flag. Okay. Hey, Paddy. That's basically that's Paddy, the guy that my malt mate, my malt mariners pal. And we're doing our YouTube videos and our tastings together. And he's still coming back from vacation, so he probably won't be joining us for the live stream tonight.
It's a good end to vacation, isn't it?
What's that?
It'd be a good end to vacation, pub night.
Maybe. Yeah, he's pretty good with his pub nights. So yeah, we'll see. Before we get into full-on drinking rage mode, maybe you guys can just fill everybody in who you are, where you're from, and what are you doing right now, and where are you doing it, because I think this is a really funny and a really cool combination.
Yeah, so we're the team from Feddie Distillery. So I guess I'm the head distiller, master distiller, whatever you want to call it. So Feddie is a pretty new distillery. We just started production November 2019. So we've been here just over a year and a half. And,
I'm trying to pull in some pictures while I talk, so I just check in with my second screen to see if I can do that. Yeah, but go on.
Yeah. And so we're on a little tiny island called Fedje, if you're local, or Fedje, if you're not local. And we're about 2 hours north of Bergen. And it's a little island, about 500 people. So I think we might now actually be the biggest business on the island with our 10 employees. Which only 5 of us are actually on the island. So we're a single malt distillery. We're also doing gin and akvavit. So we've got 2 gins out in Norway and hopefully coming to other places in Europe soon. And first akvavit will come out in at Christmas time.
That's not the distillery.
No.
Yeah.
It's the first building that I could find that I actually took a picture of from from the island.
It's probably the nicer one.
The distillery itself is not the most prettiest building on earth, but it is like with new distilleries. I mean, usually I'm quite used to that by now. So, but the island is really pretty. I love to drive there.
Yeah.
Everybody who wants to see some stuff from the drive there and our conversation, we already did a video together when I visited you guys. I think it was actually last year. I can't really believe that it was last year, because last year feels like one big blob.
Yeah.
I think I managed to sort of hit exactly this 3 weeks gap where we could actually leave the country and come back in one piece. And I visited you guys, and we had like an interview in the distillery, so everybody can have a look at that on our YouTube channel, obviously. And we tried some of your sort of like whiskey on the road or on the go, basically. So it's growing. When did you guys start distilling or putting spirit into casks?
So first casks were filled December 2019. Yeah. So it's just over a year and a half. So we're halfway to whiskey.
Yeah. Perfect.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it must have been, was it end of August, September you came to see us? Because you just started, hadn't you, Lewis?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was impressed that someone was actually able to visit it during last year at all. But it was nice. Oh, yeah.
I love that pic.
So fresh-faced.
I'd obviously had a haircut just for starting the job.
Yeah. So that's our whiskey still. Albert, he was bought new from America, and is like our pot column hybrid still. He takes 4,000 liters. And we're just doing a single distillation to get our malt spirit.
I was really surprised. That is something that I can share, because we actually didn't really do that in the video that we recorded for our YouTube channel, because we actually tried your spirit and your baby whiskey after the video, which is actually kind of stupid for a whiskey channel to not do that in the video. But that was something that was on me. I loved the spirit. That is something that I think is quite. This is the reason why I love this picture so much, because I actually told you guys right before I took it that I like the spirit so much, and you can still see like Iona glowing with pride from it's my spirit. It was really good.
Yeah, I was happy.
I mean, you can be proud of it. I mean, fair enough. It's like it's fantastic spirit, and the reason why I told you that I think it is a bit. I was quite surprised. is because I'm usually not a big fan of hybrid stills. Like I'm usually more of this pot straightforward single malt pot still spirit kind of person, and usually I don't really like whiskey that comes from hybrid stills too much. Also normalerweise bin ich halt eher so der Mensch, der eher bei den Single Malts die Pot-Still-Destillation bevorzugt und die Hybrid-Brennblasen immer ein bisschen schwierig finde. Aber der Spirit und der junge Whisky waren halt wirklich hervorragend von dieser Still, und man sieht eben auch noch, wie stolz sie halt darauf sind, auf den Spirit, und das fand ich halt sehr, sehr, sehr cool. So yeah, I was really impressed with that, and I'm really, really curious and excited to see where the whiskey will be going. And yeah, so you have different casks maturing, right? I think we looked at sherry and bourbon casks so far.
Yeah. So yeah, we're up to this coming week with cask number 400. Pretty cool. But yeah, we've got a good mix, so we're kind of probably about 80% of the stock is all ex-bourbon from Heaven Hill, and then we've got about 50 sherry casks, which are a mix. We've got mainly Oloroso, but then we've got a few PX. We've got a couple of big female ones, and then we've got one
chestnut.
Yeah, one cool chestnut cask.
My favorite.
I think it was actually used as like a storage for cherries before bottling. So it actually had like a few different cherries in it. So that one should be very interesting. Yeah, and then we've got a couple of STRs, and we've got champagne casks as well. We've got just 4 champagne casks.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the investors put a champagne vineyard, so we managed to wrangle a few casks. And we've got some Lafroig quarter casks as well.
They sound really good.
Oh yeah. You can never go wrong with Lafroig, no matter what you do with it. If you drink it or put it in something or you use the cask for anything, it's like
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we've got a nice selection going now. So yeah, it's interesting to see how they all go.
Is there a wind blowing on your microphone?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask everybody if you can hear it, because I just had to put on my fan because it's so warm in here. So is that very much? You can hear it on the microphone.
Yeah, it's a big low rumble every 20 seconds.
Okay, so I'll skip that. Or basically, what I will do, I will put the fan on the ground, so that should actually do the same for me, but not really be as annoying as for you guys.
Looks good with the wind in your hair, though.
That's what tipped me off as to what it was. Yeah. How big is that massive chestnut cask?
650. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great stuff. You guys are not really bound to the Scotch whiskey regulations, so you can basically use whatever you want.
Yeah.
Hence the hybrid still.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
there is someone just on the mainland who does build barrels, but he only works with kleinen, and he wasn't particularly keen on trying out anything a bit firmer. So,
Pine matured whiskey sounds terrible.
I mean, I think you wouldn't be left with very much at the end. I think it would all just leak out.
Yeah.
Also Sie haben gerade erzählt, dass Sie eben Sherry, PX, Sherry, Bourbonfässer und auch ein Kastanienfass haben, weil Sie ja eben auch nicht an die Scotch Whisky Regulations gebunden sind. Deswegen können Sie eben auch andere Fässer als Eichenholz verwenden. Und 3 Champagnerfässer habe ich auch noch mitbekommen. Champagne, Chestnut, Sherry and Bourbon. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. So what are we guys drinking? I'm actually I tried to have like a selection for tonight, and I'm not really sure which one might be the one I'm actually having. But my plan was basically to sort of find the perfect summer whiskey for me tonight, because I feel like, I mean, how is the temperature with you guys? For us, it's like 25-ish, about 25 degrees or a bit warmer. So that's not really my feeling well temperature. I usually below 25.
Yeah.
think it's about 15 here.
Yeah, it has been very hot. It was like 35 degrees in the brew house the other day, which was a nightmare, but also lovely because we can swim in the sea.
So I will start off with one of these guys. It's an Australian whiskey, but I'll have one of your glasses. So I'll do a very weird and funny combination, having Australian whiskey from a Norway distillery, drinking with 3 Scots that basically made it the Norwegian whiskey. But I think this is actually, that might be a really good whiskey for summer. I always going back to this. Do you know Starboard? Have you had one of these?
I've one of the red wine cask.
Yeah. No, I've not seen that one before. Though.
No.
What's the story with that one?
Sorry, my manners. Slange. The story with this one, I think it's quite interesting. I don't know, like Paddy, my friend, said that this will be discontinued soon. I'm not I don't know, because he works for the importer who brings this to Germany. So I guess he will be knowing that this is correct. It is said to be a double grain, which is weird because double grain is not really like a category of whiskey. So basically it's a blended whiskey. I think that this would be categorized as a blended whiskey. It's made from wheat and from single malt, a mix of malt, like a. I think that it is a mix of wheat whiskey that was distilled in a column still, and a single malt from Starboard. So they mix it together and they bring out this thing.
Nice. And
it's really light. It's a bit like it tastes and smells almost like a really heavy Scottish grain whiskey. Like it's not that's why I quite like it. I think because it's something quite unique. It's not a classic single malt. It's not a classic. It's not like a bourbon, or it's not like a classic grain whiskey, but it is sort of in the middle. It's in the middle between a single malt and a grain whiskey, I think. So that makes it, to me, that makes it like a really good summer whiskey.
Yeah. Otherwise known as blended whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it tastes heavier than a blended Scotch. It's a bit more like flavor-wise, I would say it's more on the single malt side, but it doesn't have the texture of a single malt. It's really hard to explain, to be honest. But I think it's the closest to a blended Scotch. So yeah, without the smoke. So Lewis, what's in your glass?
I don't actually have any whiskey in the house.
Looks like work.
The stuff that this is Northern Brewery, which is the brewery that used to exist on the premises before the distillery started there. So this beer is definitely out of date by at least a year and a half.
You're still drinking that?
Well, there's several pallets of it still sitting in the warehouse, so we've been gradually working our way through it, which it's not, I will concede, an exercise in culinary greatness, but it's tasty enough and it does the job.
You're saving beer from an inevitable I can't say the word.
Yes.
Inevitable death.
Yeah, exactly. That's not the way beer wants to go out. Beer wants to go out in a blaze of glory.
You maybe want to distill it and see what you're getting.
Well, Craig's done that.
Really?
Yeah.
What did the spirit turn out like?
So we had the one we distilled was Goza beer. It was pretty funky spirit because we did it on our gin still. It was just like a pot with 4 columns just directly above the pot.
Yeah.
And so we got it up to like 80% alcohol, and it was just like, so no, because it's
beer.
like that sour, like the sour aspect of the Goza is gone, but then you get that weird like don't know. It's quite citrusy. It was quite nice actually. It was.
I just have to translate it because I think the story is really, really funny. So, was Louis gerade erzählt hat, sie haben halt noch, also die Brennerei, in der sie arbeiten, war früher eine Brauerei und sie haben noch ganz viele Paletten von dem Bier, das mittlerweile schon das Haltbarkeitsdatum überschritten hat und sie versuchen, das Stück für Stück zu trinken und nachdem sie zwei verschiedene Brennblasen haben, hat Craig quasi eine große Menge des Bieres mal in ihre Gin-Still gepackt und das Ganze auf 80 Volumenprozent hochdestilliert und sie haben quasi dann einen Spirit erhalten, der mehr oder weniger nach hochprozentigem Bier geschmeckt hat, soweit ich es verstanden habe. So basically you had high percentage of beer afterwards.
Well, it was definitely a spirit. Like it was a spirit. It was kind of like a weird, almost ginny, but more malty.
Did you get any of the hop character coming through the still?
Nah. I mean, like the Goza, you didn't really notice much.
Oh, it wasn't super hoppy anyway. Yeah,
it was just a sour, salty Goza.
Yes,
but it is like definitely if you had it side by side with the beer, like you can tell they're the same thing.
Yeah,
it's just the spirit. It's much higher alcohol, and you've gotten rid of some of the sourness. But yeah, it was a good experiment. We made some liqueurs from it, so we made
I mean, that's the fun of working in a distillery where you can actually have the freedom to do that kind of stuff. Like, if you would be working for Glenmorangie, they probably wouldn't be letting you pouring some beer into that. That sounds like a lot of fun, to be honest. So yeah, so you can actually taste. You can actually still taste the specifics from the beer in the spirit.
Yeah,
definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you come again, you taste it. Even when we've got our liqueurs, you can still taste the spirit, and you can still taste the beer.
Yeah,
which is it kind of goes, but with some of them it just doesn't work.
I mean, that's what you would expect anyway, though, because the character of your wash comes through into the spirit.
Yeah.
So you know,
I'm still trying to work out to what extent you can actually taste characteristics from the wash or the beer in the latest spirit, because in some distilleries they let you try the wash, but to be honest, I never was able to make out any big differences or any specifics. I mean, maybe if I could try 3 different washes from 3 different distilleries, I might be able to do that. But if I'm walking through, I don't know, I think Deanston was the last one. They gave me some to try. I wouldn't be able to say like, right, this is gonna be Deanston spirit later on. So that was like for me that wasn't possible.
Get like really fruity, lovely wash, and then it doesn't come over the exact same on the still, which is a bit annoying because we want that fruitiness to come through.
Wir versuchen gerade herauszufinden, wie viel man von einem Bier im späteren Destillat noch schmeckt, also sowohl vom Wash, also vom Bier in der Brennerei, als auch wenn man ein echtes fertiges Bier destillieren würde. I think this is actually a really interesting question, like taking a random famous beer, distilling it, and then trying to see what kind of flavors you actually have left over in the end. Like if you take Corona, for example, a word you don't want to use too much in context, but out of context actually quite funny, or Heineken, or kind of. I'm from Franconia, like where I come from. Every pub has their own their own brewery. So if you take like a real local brew from Franconia and you would distill that into beer, into spirit, that would be actually quite really interesting. But obviously you need a still for that. But
because I think it would. I suspect they would end up quite distinct because I've always had, whenever I go to a distillery, I always ask if I can taste the wash, and then they're all kind of much for much. But then I do think
I'll be right back. I just have to turn on my fan.
Oh yeah.
Back.
Nice.
So DJ Brain asks, is there I think you might be saying is there a local? CG, you can maybe confirm that question. If he might be asking if there's a local brew in your area.
Not really. So I mean, we've got a pub.
There used to be one. Now there's a distillery. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think our local brewery would be like
Bergen.
Voss or
Voss or
There's a
Bergen.
couple in Bergen.
Yeah.
But local ingredients. So we've been testing some Norwegian malt, and right now we've not quite found exactly what we're looking for, but we are going to try and use Norwegian malt. And then we use quite a lot of ingredients from the island in our gin. So our gin's got pine shoots and Drams, which I think in English it's fireweed, but I'm not entirely sure what plant it's or what you'd call it. And then we did use local seaweed, but now we get it somewhere else. It has to be organic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're using a few local things in the gin. And then we're also experimenting with Kveik yeast, which is like traditional Norwegian farmhouse yeast, which we got a sample from Voss Brewery. So we're trying to make that work. I was hoping that you might be drinking that still, Liz.
I have a jar of it in the fridge still.
So basically, for your single malt whiskey.
This is the Kveik. Well, it's basically unhopped beer because we don't have any hops because it's a distillery. But this was the stuff that we were trying out. It's the I don't know if anyone's mad into their brewing, but it's the sort of farmhouse mixed yeast strains that have been. It appeared in the homebrew scene like a few years ago as this, or the micro craft brewing scene as like, what's this new yeast that no one's ever heard of, which has been used by Norwegian farmers for generations. All that happened was that some big companies finally got hold of some of these strains and went, wait a minute, we can totally use these, but they're quite interesting. They ferment at really high temperatures. So you get a lot of interesting estery flavors going on. So we've been trying to use that for the whiskey, although the last batch that we used just died. So
it is a different strain of yeast basically that you're experimented with then.
I think it died because I didn't pitch enough into it. I think it died because for the when you're fermenting for distillations, you don't need to boil the wort in order to sterilize it because it doesn't bother you if it gets sour. If it goes sour, that's kind of a good thing. That's part of the extra flavors that you're getting from lactic acid and stuff. So I think we put the Kveik in and it just got outcompeted by the bacteria that are in the barley. So yeah, hopefully we'll try again and see if we can make it work. But
is it
trial
like
and error?
Do you have like a more different more different things you're experimenting on? Because I thought like you're having like a pretty straightforward production at the moment to sort of fill the casks. Or are you having different varieties of production? Like I'm just translating a bit. Sie haben mit einer besonderen Hefesorte experimentiert. Die hat aber nicht ganz so gut funktioniert und jetzt versuchen sie, glaube ich, wieder mit der ursprünglichen Hefe zu arbeiten. So you're basically having your standard yeast at the moment that you're usually using, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
By and large, we use a whiskey-specific yeast for that purpose. But because we are making a Norwegian product, and there is this Norwegian heritage in the Kveik yeasts, it was just too tempting to not try and experiment with this stuff to see if we could make something interesting.
So what is it? What is this kind of yeast? To be honest, usually I think yeast is one of the most boring subjects in the world.
Most boring.
But since you're saying, yeah, not for distiller or brewer, I know. Since you're saying it's a Norwegian type of yeast, did I understand that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that means it has been used for what beforehand? For beer?
Yes. So it's typically used by it's a sort of farmhouse tradition. All these old Norwegian farmers who like they sterilize these cauldrons with juniper berry infusions, and then they sort of brew up with this really rugged yeast that can ferment at 40 degrees and not be affected by that. For comparison, most other yeast gets a bit stressed, like above 25. They dry it out in these sort of ornamental looking, I don't even know what you'd call them. It's like sort of plaited bits of grass matting that they dry the yeast out on, and you have these that you reuse them. It's used for this sort of strong sort of seasonal ale that Norwegian farmers used to make. We're just kind of seeing if we could use that for whiskey. I mean, it's mostly just an experiment.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's cool. I think it's always interesting to use like to see if you can sort of get like a regional or terroir is a big thing in whiskey nowadays. Like everybody's talking about terroir, like Waterford and other distilleries around the globe are trying to use a local approach, more like Stauning in Denmark or something. So I think it's always interesting to play around with these kind of things, like local ingredients. But in the end of the day, it has to be practical as well. I think
it would be quite easy for Stauning to do it.
Yeah,
like, they're surrounded by farms.
Have you before? Andrea had a really good question here. But before we go into that one, I think somebody else. I think CG asked as well. Are you using or are you planning to use Norwegian barley? I think you already answered that, but I think I sort of missed out on the answer, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, so we're planning to. Yeah, so there's a maltsters over near Oslo, which we're working with. So we've tried one batch from them, and I think we're planning on getting some more in soon. So we are going to try and have a fully Norwegian whiskey. The other thing I want to try running the still just as like a pot still, just like bypass the column and just run it as a double pot still. But we need to try and fit that into production at some point.
Yeah,
I like that experiment a lot, but in the end of the day, it needs to be working out for the distillery as well. I think the spirit is really good as it is. So I feel that that is really interesting. So do you want to maybe answer the question of Andrea about like the location of the distillery, or why basically was the distillery built on the island? Because logistically, probably a real pain in the ass to do that.
Yeah, it can be, but it's so beautiful, and it will attract. It does attract so many tourists to the island already, and I think they will just once we get our tourist centre up and running, hopefully they will want to come, and it will be worth it.
I think Scotland certainly has capitalised on that whole image of distilleries being in rugged, remote places. So I think it's part of the romance of the project.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
What are you on now?
Whiskey Zone. Wait for it. That's what you're getting when you're drinking with nerds. Wow. Okay, before I have to translate what you said, just in case, before I answer my brain to this one. Also, Iona hat gesagt, dass sie die Brennerei wahrscheinlich oder auch unter anderem auch deswegen auf der Insel gebaut haben, weil die eben auch ganz gerne von Touristen besucht wird, und sie hoffen natürlich auch, wenn sie ein Besucherzentrum haben, dass es dann so ein bisschen auch dahingehend nochmal interessant sein könnte, dass die Insel halt quasi noch eine Brennerei auch hatte, sozusagen. Das war so das, was ich jetzt rausgehört habe. I just had, before I actually say that, you guys have drinks as well, like Craig and Iona. What are you drinking right now?
So you've just started.
Yeah, mine was dealt for me, so I've got the Old Pontley.
Oh, the 17-year-old.
Yeah,
very nice.
We just took that out. Yeah, I've had that one sitting for like 4 or 5 years before.
My heart.
But right now I am on an SMWS 11315 Apricot Jamboree. I think it's a brave ale actually. So yeah, it's nice to get one you don't see around often. and yeah, it's just super sweet, super fruity.
It's good for summer. It's definitely a good summer
Yeah,
drink.
yeah, definitely. But
So
yeah.
it's basically the drinking with whiskey nerds. Pulteney 17 and SMWS Bravel, like one of the nerdiest drinks you can probably have. That's awesome. Is it? Do you think like? I mean, Pulteney for me is a fantastic summer whiskey. Like I love Pulteney.
Yeah.
I've never had the 17.
Go over there.
Come round? Yeah, I was going to say, should I?
It's really good. It is my favorite Pulteney so far. I think the 20. I've only tasted the 21-year-old once at the distillery, and that's it. I wanted to buy a bottle immediately. I came home and it was discontinued, and I almost cried because they discontinued the 21 and the 17-year-old at the same time, and I was so sad because they were both so amazing.
Yeah, it was sad. Yeah, I think I bought a bottle of. They had a distillery exclusive. It was like a sample. You could take a bottle from a first fill bourbon cask that was like 16 years old or something. That one was amazing. So I split a bottle of that with one of my friends. But otherwise, I think the 17 is unreal. Sadly, I don't have any more squirreled away. My last one.
It's whiskey for you guys. I mean, we can't help it. We can't do anything about it.
You just have to make your own, Craig.
Exactly.
It means waiting 17 years.
That's true. Do you guys? Can you pull your laptop up just a tiny bit closer to you guys? I'm not sure how your logistics are. I don't want your bottles to fall over the laptop or anything like that. That's perfect. Good stuff. So, Lewis, what would you be your summer whiskey if you have your free choice?
If I have my free choice,
limited to the rules of this earth. Like, I mean, in terms of
no, I mean
Dallas Dew is always a good summer dram.
Port Ellen 25.
I must confess to be something of a Philistine when it comes to buying malt whiskies, and have mostly spent my life buying £20 supermarket malts.
Fair enough.
Which are obviously hard to come by in Norway.
Yeah.
How much? That's actually an interesting question. What do you pay for like a standard bottle of Scotch? Like I don't know, like a.
Well, generally speaking, I don't, because it's so expensive.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm asking.
Which is why I'm drinking beer.
Yeah.
We were having a look in the Vinmonopol the other day, and so it kind of single malt in Norway kind of starts around about 500 crowns, so about 45 euros maybe. And so there's kind of a weird kind of pricing structure, because kind of like the premium stuff, like they have like Glenfarclas 21-year-old, you'll get it like cheaper than you will in Scotland. And it's
really,
you get it for like around 80 euros, something like that. But then they have like kind of the entry level ones. They have they start at 50 euros. That's
very strange.
Yeah, it's funky. Not really.
I mean,
sure.
I love the information about the Glenfarclas 21. As soon as I come back to Norway, I'll definitely get me one of those. But in Germany, we pay about for the 21. Maybe we pay like, I think 90, 95. It's not. I mean, it's still good. It's still a good price.
Yeah.
But I thought that Norway would be much more expensive, to be honest. Like for a standard bottle, like something in Germany, for example, we pay like $30 for a Bowmore 12. Would that be like a 45 bottle, a 45 pound bottle or euro bottle in Norway?
If you could find it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the selection is not always that great. Definitely, maybe better online. They have a much better international selection. So we accidentally picked up a French whiskey the other day, actually.
French
rye, yeah.
Yeah, Roof
Rye.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was okay. But
Is that
Yeah.
elevated minimum pricing point part of the sort of Norwegian governmental policy to try and dissuade people from having a weekly bottle of whiskey or something?
I think they do. Yeah,
yeah.
I think they do it not on quality, but it's like not on quality, but on the unit price. I think I'm not sure.
Yes, it's all the thing of having a state-run monopoly on alcohol sales.
Or maybe they just want to persuade people to drink the really expensive stuff in terms of like they're driving Tesla, so they have to drink like a 21-year-old Glenfarclas.
Yeah.
They can't have like a 12-year-old. I don't know.
Yeah, they're definitely driving Teslas.
Good
So-
for the environment.
What I had like my brain fart, excuse my French, when I was drinking this. This is a whiskey that I had in a around the world tasting a couple of, I think 2 years ago. It's a Belgian whiskey, and I was absolutely mind blown by this distillery, which is actually the only thing I don't like about these guys is they have not decided how to call themselves, because the whiskey is called Golden Carolus, like Golden Carl, translated.
Yeah.
The distillery I think is called Stokery de Molenberg, like a mill on a hill, and the brewery itself is called Heet Anker, which means I think like hot anchor. So it's a brewery, like it's a big Belgian brewery, and they have their own small distillery, and I think we came across this whiskey, like me and Patty, a couple of years ago, and we smelled it and immediately had the exact same impression what to think how this whiskey smelled like. I'm not sure if you have that in Scotland. In Germany, we can get something that is like it's like jelly bananas covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you know that?
Yeah.
I hate this stuff. I think it's absolutely horrendous. But this whiskey smelled exactly like these things, and I liked it in the whiskey, which is
Yeah.
the fact that you don't like smelling and tasting things somewhere, but as soon as they're in whiskey, we love it.
Yeah.
So, and with this one, this is the same kind of whiskey, only matured in cherry casks for about 6 to 8 years. And the distillery, I think I actually only planned on writing a review about this, but I didn't manage to do it. I have plenty of pictures of them. I'm not sure. I think in the YouTube video we did, I think there are some pictures of the distillery in it. And they have two proper copper pot stills from Forsyth, which I think is amazing for like a small Belgian distillery.
Yeah.
And they have been going for a while.
Belgium is this?
What's that?
Whereabouts in Belgium is this?
It's in the town of Mechelen. It's I can't really. It's pronounced like the German, like Mechelen. It's Mechelen. I'm not sure if you can see it. Oh, my camera.
I'll Google it.
Yeah. I was really surprised by this because up until this point I haven't tasted any European whiskey I liked, and then Amorique from France came along, or from Brittany, and fantastic stuff. But the Belgian whiskey is really good. I really liked it, and they have been going for a while, and I think the brewery is like very old. I think they're a couple of 100 years old, to be honest. So so that's really interesting stuff. It's crazy. Like, so you guys have in Norway, you can basically choose from a big variety of different kind of whiskeys from around the world, but you don't really get that much Scotch. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so. Yeah, it's okay. I think we'll try and. So like, I really like is it own bottling? It's like the Berry Brothers stuff.
Yeah, indie
like the indie bottlings. I love them. Because it's cheaper. So I can afford it. But I also think they do some fantastic stuff with their casks.
Oh yeah.
And I think is that our favorite whiskey that I think our one is that indie bottling?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, alt malt cask. and they do. And I think most of theirs are really good as well. So, but obviously it's hit and miss, and sometimes you get a really bad one. But
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's just not a huge selection. Like
No.
they've got kind of a kind of half decent bourbon selection,
yeah,
and then
Okay. Cool.
kind of slightly lackluster Scotch selection, and then but then yeah, you get like stuff from New Zealand. I don't think they've got any Australian,
we've
but
got some stuff from America, but that's the bourbon. But,
it's a weird mix.
yeah.
It's very frustrating because if you go on the Vin Monopole website, they've actually got quite a good range of independent bottle stuff. They've got a lot of like Cooper's Choice and like a couple of different other indie bands, but then they keep them all up, like they never remove them. So I see something that looks really interesting, and then it's like, this has been sold out, and this has been sold out. So I think actually, if you go on the website, like half of the whiskeys listed are sold out.
Do you feel that there's whiskey like present in the pubs or restaurants in Norway? Like, is there like whiskey bars or anything like that in the biggest cities?
Yeah, there are some really good whiskey bars. There's one that we went to in Bergen, and I think Jan tried to take you to one in Oslo.
Someone tried to take me to one in Oslo, but we weren't allowed in because I was too drunk. Although I was stone cold sober at this point. I think that was Jekyll and Hyde in Oslo. Is supposed to be very good.
Yeah.
But the one we went to in Bergen was Termin. It's just right next to the station. Yeah, they had really good selection. I think I had
and the guy that was there that ran it was really good as well.
Yeah, I remember I tried a Banff and maybe a Glenvore, and they had some really cool stuff in there.
Yeah.
I will do a little whiskey battle now with two German whiskeys. I think they're both pretty good for summer, so I'll have a look into that. And I have to say, with a little pride, that they're actually both from Franconia, the area of Germany where I come from, which actually starts to make pretty decent whiskey, to be honest. So, yeah, we'll see where it's going, as long as we can drink.
Yeah.
I think I've had my nose out of this old Pontley since I poured it.
You haven't had it?
Nice.
This is really nice. Yeah, Pulteney, I think the distillery itself is fantastic. I just really hope that they will, how do I put this nicely? We'll come back to some sort of bottling policy that I approve. I'm not sure. The thing is, actually, this is a bit unfair to say it, but since we're amongst us and it's a very small crowd, we can actually talk some bullshit, which actually has never stopped us to do that on the big scale, to be honest, as well. Me and Paddy. No, I haven't tried the 15 and the new 18-year-old. I always wanted to, but I haven't had the chance yet. Did you try some of the new bottlings? Because the old bottlings, I love them all. Like the 17, 21, 12 is a decent dram. Not so much for me, but it's okay. I love the old Skerries. The sherry cask was fantastic as well. Have you tried the 15 or the 18 yet?
Yeah, I've tried both of them, and from what I remember with 18 it was not a world away from the 17. It just wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite as refined, and it's like, certainly in Scotland anyway, it was like 50 quid more expensive. So for me, it was just like, it was very disappointing that they replaced the 17 with the 18. Flavor profile, it wasn't massively different, but it was just not quite as good and more expensive. And then I think the 15, I think it was a bit more sherried maybe, and it was so. Yeah, I'm not particularly keen on sherry cask whiskey, to be honest. It didn't quite do it for me. I still think it was not as good as the 17. And I think when they came out, it was basically the same price as the 17. So
Yeah.
for me, like, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like, I just have this gut feeling with Jesus, what's the company? Pulteney, Balblair,
Inverhouse.
right? With them switching Balblair and Pulteney basically at the same time, I just feel that their bottling policy has changed. Like they switched from the vintage bottlings from Balblair to the age statements, which broke my heart completely. Like I still have. I'm not sure if you can see it. One of the old, which is from 1990, 26-year-old Balblair, which is an absolute blast. And they used to be like really good value for money. Like I got one for my birthday a couple of years ago, and it was a 17-year-old Balblair. It was a liter bottle, half bourbon, half sherry, for I think it was $60, or like for a liter bottle of a 17-year-old whiskey, and that was a really good dram. And I think the 26-year-old you could buy that for 95 euros in Germany a couple of years ago. So Balblair used to be a really value for money whiskey, and I feel that they have changed quite a bit. The 15-year-old is still really good. It's a really good whiskey, but I think in Germany it's 75 quid for a 15-year-old. That's a hard price point, I think. Ooh. So yeah.
Yeah, we need to go to Germany.
Yeah.
For drinking whiskey, you're in the right place in Germany for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about Glendronach?
Yeah, sure.
What do you make of their recent change in policy, which they say is not a change in policy?
I mean, what's that? It's not a German policy?
No. The Glendronach taking away their unchill filtered sticker.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, obviously, I'm allowed to talk about that. I have been employed by Glendronach for only half a year as a tour guide, so I can say about them whatever I want. it's not like they have a gun on my head. I wish I would still be more in touch with the distillery, but I'm still in touch with my old tour guide friends, so that's great. Anyways. It's a big discussion in Germany. The problem, I think, for me with these kind of things in terms of policy is always there's my personal inner nerd, and then there is like the person that watches the whiskey scene and sees all the discussions and sees all the drama some people make about a lot of things that are happening without having the big picture and the full knowledge about back information within the whiskey scene sometimes. And I feel some people are slagging off some brands a bit too quickly and a bit too early without having the big picture. I mean, like I watched a video from Ralphie when he talked about the 15-year-old and about the whole issue of chill filtration. And in this video, he said that Glendronach will start coloring and will start chill filtering. And to be fair to him, he actually did another video where he corrected these things he said because they were actually not right. Glendronach wrote him a letter and say, look, we're not starting to color our whiskey. We have put the statement from chill filtration off the labels because we want to have the chance to do it if we want to. That's what they basically said. And I think that's a quite fair response. But what you have to keep in mind is I am a YouTuber as well. I know how these things work. And Ralphie has, I mean, you get so much attention if you do these kind of things. And I don't really like the concept behind it. I really understand why people are really frustrated with it. And I am the same. Like, I love my Glendronach as it is. The 15-year-old right now is such a fantastic whiskey. And if you ask me, obviously, I would keep it at 46% unchill filtered, no color. Yeah, exactly. It's sort of a drama, but I'm not so sure if you already can talk about rise and fall of the distillery. I think the politics obviously is, and we all knew this right from the beginning when Brown-Forman took over. I mean, if a big American company that owns one of the biggest whiskey brands in the world, Jack Daniels, is taking over a whiskey distillery in Scotland, it would be very naive to expect that they would keep it a very high-profile, exclusive single malt for the rest of the day until the end of days. I mean, the thing is, what I would not like Glendronach to do is going for the supermarket value stuff, like 40% colored chill filtered. That would really drive me off the brand. As long as they keep the whiskey on a good quality. I mean, for example, the 12-year-old has been on 43% for ages now. It has been a whiskey with a different, one of my older fans or Malt Mariners customers, he texted me like, look, Leon, in your video, you said it always has been 43%, which is not correct. It has been 40% before, or 46%, which I didn't know because I'm not in the game for that long. But for the period of time that I have been a fan of Glendronach, their 12-year-old always was 43%, and I like the 12 as it is. I wouldn't change anything about that. And I'm not sure if I actually would make out the difference if the whiskey would be chill filtered. Obviously, if I have had the choice, I would say don't chill filter it. I like it as it is. And I feel that Glendronach is a very heavy spirit. It's a very, spicy and sharp kind of character. And I would be actually, to be honest, really curious to compare a 12-year-old chill filtered and a 12-year-old unchill filtered, just to compare them and see if you can actually make out the difference. But
I don't think you'll get a test where that's the only variable you can change.
Exactly.
If they release a new one, then it'll just be a different whiskey. So
yeah.
I always wanted to do, when I ran the walls in Edinburgh, I always wanted to do a tasting where I would like buy unchill filtered bottles and try and like chill filter them myself in my freezer, but I never got around to it.
I tried the same. I never worked out for me as well. No.
Is this where you can do a direct comparison of one?
Yeah, like find the exact same bottles of whiskey and then try chill filtering it yourself, and then see if you can actually taste any difference.
To sum up your question, because I was basically talking like a true politician. No, I don't like the fact that they're changing something, but I don't like the amount of hate they're getting for it at the moment, because I think right now the whiskey has not changed yet. For the product that it's out there, I think the product is really good and it's appropriately priced for now. Although the 18 and 21 having a lot of problems with accessibility at the moment, so the prices are rising quite a bit. It's really hard to say if the distillery is responsible or the retailers are. But in the end of the day, for me, it is like I would just want to wait and see how the brand will develop. And if we have, like, in 2 or 3 years, if we're starting to see 40% colored and chill filtered versions of it in a supermarket, I wouldn't be bothered about that as long as I can still get my 15-year-old with 46% without color. You know, if they would start doing like a cheaper supermarket version and still give us the nerds like the single cask bottlings, the unchill filtered and uncolored 46% whiskeys. I don't care if there's a lighter version of it. I mean, I think there's other distilleries do this as well pretty well. Like Abelauer is a very smooth whiskey. I love Abelauer. The Abuna is still really good, although the older bottlings used to be better. But times are changing all the time, and even if Glendronach will, even if the way it will go as people predict right now, if they sort of will really lose their touch, if they will become the next Macallan, like people say. Obviously, I would be kind of heartbroken because Glendronach is a brand that I would not be able to change because I used to work there. So my heart and my attachment to the brand is really big. And I cannot easily say, look, okay, if it's not Glendronach, then it's Deanston, or if it's Bunnahabhain. But still, I have to say, and that's something that Feddie always tells me when I come crying to him, like, look what they did to my whiskey. He always says, look, there will always be new whiskey. There's always be new distilleries. There's always, look at you guys. You just build a distillery from scratch. In a couple of years, we will have fantastic Norwegian whiskey. Look at Scotland, like Ardnahoe, Ardnamurchan, Nicknean, Lindor's Abbey, Clydeside. I mean, you can go on and on and on about this. There's so many new distilleries popping up right away, and even the big distilleries. I think even the big brands, if the tides are turning and if they feel, look, we're losing our touch, they can always go back. I mean, what Billy Walker did with Glenallachie, which was a really boring, random third, second row distillery that nobody cared about. He took it and turned it around, and I think you can do that with almost any distillery, to be honest, if you have the guts to do it. So I don't think that necessarily we're losing the good whiskey just because more people like to drink it. We might lose one brand, that might be the Glendronach in the end, but I think there will always be new good distilleries out there. So
yeah, I think it's always hard as whiskey nerds and people who like the cask strength, unchill filter, no added colouring, that you forget that most whiskey is not drunk by whiskey nerds. It's drunk by people who are browsing the supermarket, and actually a lot of people don't want cask strength, and actually a lot of people.
So this is for example really really sad and interesting at the same time, because Oliver is like he's somebody you trust. He has a whiskey podcast in Germany, and he's doing a great job as well. So if he says that I kind of trust his how you say that judgment. I will definitely try to do that, Ollie. I will try to get me my hands. I have 2 old bottlings here from Glendronach 12, different bottling times, but they're both unchill filtered, and I will get me a new one and then do a video on that, because I think it's really interesting. Like Louis said, you can never compare one whiskey to another, because you would need to have the same bloody cask to do that. But in the end of the day, it will still be interesting to do a 12-year-old versus unchill filtered 12-year-old.
I also don't really blame distilleries for having to change the lineup, because they run out of a certain cask, because you have to plan so many years in the future for what the demand's going to be in 10, 15 years time. Like, it's very difficult to get that right, and you have to use the casks that you've got in some kind of combination.
Absolutely.
Remind me to save this video so that in 12 years' time, when people are complaining they can't get hold of Feddie 10-year-old anymore, just show them that.
Yeah, told you.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the point. But that's what I meant when I said I look at these kind of things with 2 different eyes or 2 different views, because on the one part, my heart beats as a customer, as a nerd, as a consumer, and I don't really fucking care how many barrels or casks they have in the warehouse. But in the end of the day, if you talk to people, if you visit distilleries, what I love to do, I mean, that's the way we guys met. If you walk into a distillery and if you walk into a warehouse and if you talk to people who actually are responsible for doing that kind of stuff, you cannot ignore that whiskey is it's a very limited product. You have to do the best you can with what you have. And if Glendronach, I mean, if the warehouses are empty, and if the old stock is gone, or is running low, then obviously the distillery manager have to say, like, look, we have to increase the prices, or we have to make it a limited bottling, or I don't know. There's many different ways you can deal with that kind of stuff. But when I worked there, we had a handfill. And I went through 3 casks while I was working there, 6 months, 3 sherry casks, 12-year-old Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. And the difference between these 3 handfills were fucking huge. Like, the first one was one of the best whiskeys I've ever had in my whole life. I still have a bottle sitting in my cabinet waiting for, I don't know, firstborn son, or I don't know, a really good reason to open it. Second one was mediocre, and then the third one was back really good whiskey as well. So I was really surprised how different the 3 casks were from same age, same distillery, same type of cask, same cask size. And they were 3 different whiskeys, or 3 different brothers from the same family, but they were quite different, I think. And as soon as I left, they turned their hand fills, and these bottles cost 84 pound, which is about like 100 euros by the time, which I thought, ooh, this is quite expensive. And afterwards I thought, Jesus, that was a really good price. That was a really, really fucking good price for the product, because the product was really amazing. And when I went away, they changed it to 21, 25-year-old whiskey, which cost 300 quid for a bottle. And I thought, like, damn, I mean, if I buy a handful, I'm willing to pay up to 100 quid for a bottle because of the experience and if the whiskey is really good. But 300 is a lot of money. I mean, that's bad. I mean,
You buy a lot of whiskey for that.
yeah. I mean, it's still a 25-year-old single cask from a sherry cask. Obviously, I mean, the product must be fantastic, and I've tried quite a bit of my fair share of 20 plus Glendronach single casks in my time there, and they're all fantastic. But in the end of the day, there's a lot of money. And for a lot of people, that is just too much money to spend on a bottle of liquor, you know? Even, no matter how good it is. And I would always go for a budget whiskey or for like a handful that is a bit more accessible. So I would always go for make it a bit younger, make it cheaper, and give the people that kind of stuff. You don't need to have like a 25-year-old single cask to make people happy. At least me, I'm happy with a 12-year-old, but that's like, you know.
What's the most you've ever spent on a bottle of whiskey?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a bit mean. I will come back. That question will come back to you.
Yeah, sorry, no, I don't mean to put you.
No. The question, the problem is not. I don't. The problem for me is not to answer the question. The problem is to think, because I buy whiskey mainly for our tasting business, which is not. I don't buy it for myself.
It's not your money. Yeah.
Exactly. It is my money. Unfortunately, it is. But it is not. It's not for me to drink. No.
Okay. Sorry.
I would say for a bottle of whiskey that I bought for myself to drink, I think the most expensive was a Bowmore handfill, 19-year-old sherry cask, and I think that was 150 pound, and it was fucking amazing. I would spend every penny on it any time. Just, I mean, I love Bowmore, and if you ever can get a hand on a single cask Bowmore, try it, because they do great stuff. And usually you don't really get that kind of intensity from Bowmore from the standard bottlings.
Yeah, most expensive I've ever bought, well, for myself, was one of the single cask Glendronachs, actually.
Speaking of
which I normally wouldn't spring for, but it was on my birthday, like same date, same year, and I'd kind of always said if I found that whiskey, I'd have to buy it. So I think it was maybe 160, 170. Which I've not touched it, and I'm the same, waiting for an occasion to open it.
Well, that's the weird thing when you get into the territory of super expensive whiskeys, where not that these are like even the highest of the high end. It's just like, are they even for drinking anymore, or are they just for the idea of drinking?
I think with that one, I always kind of thought I'd save it until I'm 50, and then I'd see what it was worth at auction. And if it's like 10 grand, then I'll just sell it and buy 1,000 bottles of whiskey. No, it's not that bullshit.
It is a mean game, is it? With whiskey bottles and then the price point increasing. Like, just for a really small example, I have like a bottle of Blanton sitting back there in my cabinet, and I love Blantons, and you can't get it anymore in Germany. And it's basically, I think that the Americans kind of cut the wire to Europe, so there's no more Blantons coming in. What's that?
Still get it in Scotland.
But I can't get to Scotland. That's the problem. Yeah, so I mean, this bottle over here I bought for like, I think 45 quid or something, and now it's worth 200. And I'm like,
Oh.
that's a lot of money. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to knit a lot of socks to get 200 quid, but I still want to drink that bourbon. It's a really good bourbon. So, but you know, and it's same with you guys. If you have like a bottle of a 25-year-old sitting somewhere, which turns into a 500, 600 bottle of scotch, that's a tough choice. But in the end of the day, yeah, I think whiskey's for drinking, but it still kind of hurts if you don't have a lot of money and you're sitting on a bottle of alcohol that will give you the possibility to buy 10 bottles of all really good product as well. That's hard. It's a hard decision, I think. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if you don't like something. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you should always just assess the price of a bottle of whiskey in relation to your own current ability to afford whiskey.
yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that's a very German way of thinking. I mean, when I was in Scotland, I know that all the Scots that I met never made that kind of assumption. They basically said like, look, you like whiskey. I grab that and open it and I just pour and look where it's getting us tonight. That is not how most people think in Scotland, I think. And I feel like all my friends that I know buy whiskey for drinking. They're not buying it for keeping it or holding on to it. And I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that as well. I think that sometimes you just have an accident and you have a bottle sitting there for a while and you forget about it. And then somebody tells you, look, this bottle is worth like so much and such. And you'd be like, oh, damn it. Should I open it right now or should I just keep it? That's the thing, you know?
Just open it and take, 1 dram out of it just to make sure that you can't sell it, Yeah.
Teaspoon.
So the shop that I used to work at, Roma Whiskies, they're now doing like they're calling it the Drammer's Reward. So if it's a rare like limited release, they'll offer you. I think it's like they'll give you a £10 voucher for the shop if you open it in front of them, or if you agree to have your name written on the label if you're buying.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's just encouraging people to buy it, to actually drink it rather than to buy it and just flip it.
And where is that again?
Roma Whiskies in Edinburgh.
Nice.
They've got an online shop as well.
I think that's a really good initiative. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where exactly is that? I have to or you can text me on Facebook later.
Yeah.
The name of the shop.
Right opposite St. Giles Cathedral.
Because it's so funny. Every time I'm in Edinburgh, I never know where to buy whiskey. I always find these these touristy whiskey shops that I don't want to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know like a local, nice, sympathetic, good retailer. Like I know all over Scotland, in the smallest towns all over Scotland. I know shops, but I don't know any in Edinburgh. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Well,
Craig said if they would point, so that everyone would have like their favorite whiskies, and then if someone came in and said, "Oh, I like sherry," then the person who likes sherry would find them their perfect whiskey, and I think that's the right way, because then they can, and it's the same. You liked bourbon, so you were able to find people who like.
It's the only way. It's the only way to sell whiskey, to be honest. In my opinion.
I think it's quite funny because it's right in the middle of the Royal Mile, so everyone assumes, it must be a tourist trap, it must be horrendous prices, and actually it is
very good.
I still believe it is. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Andrea has another question for you guys. Are you planning or are you already planning your future range, like in terms of how many barrels you need to fill, which barrels you want to keep to let them age longer, or are you?
I think on a big scale, we're trying to think. Okay, we can sell 20% of the stock that we've made this year once it turns 3, and then we'll still have plenty for a 10-year-old. But it definitely doesn't go down to this barrel, and this barrel are going to be our 21-year-old in 20 years.
So much of that, I think, depends on how the barrel changes as it gets older. I mean, you need to be tasting it and seeing and grading the barrels in the future which we can't do after a year. Most of the whiskey is under a year old still. So
yeah, I mean, it's like what you were saying with the Glendronach casks. Like, you don't actually know, even if they're the same spirit in the same casks in the same warehouse, they can just turn out differently. So yeah, I think always just something we'll need to keep track of and do close to the time.
Oh, it's a very empty-looking warehouse.
Yeah,
I know.
Is it looking different right now?
Oh, it's chock-a-block.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's good. But yeah, because we've had to fill up the other warehouse as well. So that's good.
Cool. Good stuff. Yeah. Cask management. I mean, that's probably a really big thing. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, but I think that's how most young distilleries are doing it, right? I mean, I just assume you're filling casks, and then you look where they're going.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, you decide, look, we have to leave this one for a bit longer, or this is really good.
Yeah, I think like scale comes into it as well, because like, you know, we're in the grand scheme of things still pretty tiny. So like, you know, 400 casks a year, we can kind of keep a track of not every single cask, but most of them. Whereas if we were making 1 million liters of pure alcohol a year, pumping out 10,000 casks a year, obviously you can't track every single one of them, and you will if you say, all right, these 100 casks are going to be our 8-year-old bourbon release in 5 years' time or whatever.
Surely you just have more dedicated people whose job it is to keep track and grade all the casks in a way that
like 50 people to taste all your casks.
I don't know. It sounds like an alright job.
I'd love if people did that, but I don't think they do.
I wouldn't. It's really interesting. I would not want to do that in real life. Like, it always sounds so cool, but if you really have to do it, like it's a bit like, for me, people sometimes when I tell them what I do, or when I try to explain to them what I do, I always say, like, look, I work with whiskey, and it was like, how do you mean? And then I try to explain to them the different type of things I'm doing. And they're all like, well, that's great. You must be drinking all the time and must be having a great time. And I'm like, yeah, actually, I drink much less than I used to be right now, because I usually drink for business purposes. And then in my free time, I don't really drink that much anymore.
Yeah.
So it's much less fun than many people think, I think, sometimes. And sometimes I wish I was just on the private consumer side of just picking the bottles I want and drinking them. That's it.
Yeah.
So I think it must be tough to, if you literally work in a warehouse, to go through the casks and doing quality control and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's challenging. It's a pretty rough job, I guess. I'm not sure. I mean, I have never done it, but it sounds like a rough job.
I think like your ability to taste probably diminishes over the course of the day, and like, or even if you're doing it by smell. I mean, after a while, on any given working day when you're using your olfactory senses, it's just like, I don't even know what any of this tastes like anymore, man.
I mean, I've heard from, I'm not sure if you can confirm that, I've heard from other distilleries like Waterford that they usually work in like usually in the morning, because you're having more fresh senses, and then they have like a limited amount of samples they're going through, and then they do their notes, and you can't just, like you said, Lewis, it's not possible to work like all day going through 2,000 samples.
Exactly. You can't do it.
It's quite a limited skill that is numbed down over the time by the alcohol fumes, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I quite like this one as well.
Yeah.
Casks. Can't go wrong with it. Right. Bowmore 15 is done. I'm really curious. It's really hard to say. This is probably, if you guys ever come to Germany, or if I ever come back to, maybe did I actually give you a dram of this? Because I usually walk around in the world showing people this. It's a German rye whiskey. Have you tried this when I was there?
Yeah.
I think I brought it with me. Yeah, I love this. I'm actually thinking about opening this. Whatever.
It was good. Yeah.
Whiskies for drinking.
Yeah. And they're really nice guys as well. I did an interview with Stefan. Stefan? I hope I remember his name correctly. I'm really bad with these kind of things. He's doing basically your job. He's alone doing everything. Like, and I did an interview on our YouTube channel with him, and they are basically, I think they're the only German distillery that only produces rye, or not only, but mainly produces rye whiskey.
Oh, cool.
And they bought the distillery from somebody who was doing single malt, like 70% single malt, 30% rye, and now they're turning it around, making more rye, and they're actually planning to skip the single malt completely and only making the rye whiskey, which I think is a really good idea. Because their single malt sucks and the rye whiskey is really good. So I think that's the perfect decision for them.
Yeah. Do you know like how they're doing the rye? Are they lautering it, or do they have a mash filter? Are they using enzymes, or?
Wait for it. Come again? Like, you mean like? I think they're having 100% malted rye.
All right.
Yeah, so they, as far as I know, they do 100% malted rye. It's all from the region around Berlin. Like, the distillery is pretty close to Berlin, but it's in a really rural area with a lot of forests called Spreewald, which for all the Germans is a very commonly known area. And for you, I haven't been there until I visited the distillery, and it's beautiful. It's a really, really nice. A really nice place and a nice distillery. I can actually show you some pictures. And they have 100% malted rye from the region, and they have a hybrid still as well. World whiskey. Okay, my laptop just is caving. No, here we go. Germany, Spreewald, and I think they're doing a really, really great job. And that's a proper hybrid still. It's for you guys here. It's a really nerdy night. Love it.
So many plates.
And I think for me, that's the perfect example for this type of still. For me, does not work with single malt, but their rye whiskey is fucking amazing. It's like their rye whiskey.
Craig, are you confused by the same part of this that I'm confused by, which is where does the vapor go when it gets to the top of the pot?
Yeah. What's the point of that bulb at the top? Because like it looks like it's just coming out not from the very top.
I have different pictures.
We need more angles, Leon.
Yeah. Working on it. The good stuff. The good stuff about this thing is what makes it actually a really unique product. Usually rye whiskey will be matured 100% in virgin oak. This is matured in sherry, wine, and virgin oak. And I think this is a really, really cool combination. And I'm quite surprised, actually, that nobody's doing that right now. Nobody I know. For all I know, this is a quite unique approach to rye whiskey, which I think what they are doing is a really cool thing. I'm just looking at. Okay, this is one where you can see it. That's a different one. That's a Carl still. Carl. So here you can see the vapor thingy going up, but that's a different version. They have two different versions of stills.
It goes around the back.
Does it look like they have competitors? Is it? Oh, I'll come back down there.
Yeah.
That is a bizarre thing.
Cool still.
It's very sweet.
I know people have been getting really inventive with their still designs, but this stuff is pretty rad looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's to be honest, that is a quite typical German still. If you see schnapps stills, when people produce schnapps in Germany, they use these kind of stills. They're not usually made for. There's two different types of. That's a Kote still, Kothe, and the other one is a Karl still.
Yeah,
So,
our stills are Kote.
yeah, in Germany you will see this a lot, but for whiskey it's quite unusual, which is the reason I think that I don't like the single malt. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the same brand as our gin still, but I think our gin still is from like 1995 or something.
But you're right. I think that actually this is probably the part here where the fumes go into the column, right? Because there doesn't seem to be.
It looks like I'm trying to work out if the shadow is coming from the column, like which direction the shadow is coming from.
Yeah,
you
this
can see in the shadow
here.
there's a little bit at the top. But I don't know.
We won't find out. Maybe I have to.
It's not like you're seeing a pipe that's not casting a shadow. No, a pipe that you can't see that is casting a shadow.
No, I don't think so.
On the column.
Okay.
No. And I think if I'm not wrong, I think that these guys actually won the best rye whiskey in the world at the World Whiskey Awards. I'm just skipping through the pictures. Oh, actually, I can show you this because we're in the nerd zone tonight anyway, so we're scaring away any usual people. Long time ago. This is their warehouse. So they have like American oak. They have sherry. They have red wine, which I think is fucking amazing. I tried a single cask rye whiskey from a wine cask. Wow, that was good. That was very different, but really, really good. Very, very sweet and very fruity.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that the rye works really well with the wine casks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had that. That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, where should you? It's not really done regularly, you know. It's kind of
exactly.
No, I think
it's very unusual way of approaching rye whiskey.
Yeah.
So, and obviously here you can see that another thing that I'm very proud of. I mean, I can't say I'm proud of it because I didn't make it. I was just born there. Bamberg is my hometown where I was born, and a lot of malt that's going out in the world is coming from this place.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to live right next to this place, so it smelled like barley all the time. So I'm just trying to find the. Oh yeah, here, this Steffen. That's the guy doing his labeling thingies. That's a great place. We're having like the German YouTube bloggers and vloggers. They have like a gathering in September there. So they're inviting all the people from, like, they do blogs and YouTube stuff. Really good idea, like marketing wise. But I think that everybody who will be joining that will have a blast because it's a really, really good, nice place. And just skipping through this. A lot of people being, you know, tattooed whiskey makers. Just have to love it. There's more still. Oh, wait. There's another angle of the still. No.
Oh, I know.
I don't think that we can
Go
see
to the
it.
next shot. Okay, here we can see some pipes coming out the back, and yeah, they're all really low down, which is odd.
Okay.
Or
Always up on the inside or something.
You tasted
I don't know.
the product.
You're taking vapor not from the
It
top
was
of
good.
the.
It was a good product, so
Uh,
good still.
I don't know. I was the same like you when I came in there. I was like, I'm not sure if this still can produce a spirit that I like. But you know, I just love to be proven wrong with my prejudice. As soon as somebody gives me something that I really like, I'm always happy to change my mind. So this is the other one. Yeah. Weird stuff.
It is definitely all these hybrid stills are a bit harder to get your head around than the kind of conceptual simplicity of a pot still.
I
times
stopped.
two.
I stopped to try to understand it. To be honest, I tried so many times, but you guys probably know much better what it is. So, yeah, here it is. That's the World Whiskey Awards World Best Rye.
Nice.
Oh wow!
It's really that's something from a small distillery in Germany. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
We've moved back onto work. This is one of
Yummy.
our bourbon cask samples.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone.
So, how old is this now?
I think it's a year. But I can't exactly remember when I took that sample home with me. So I believe it's a year-old bourbon cask.
Bourbon cask, baby. Love it.
And, and it's fresh bourbon cask. So I think it could pass for being older than a year. Definitely. Yeah. Good.
It's got a fair amount of color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad for a year.
Mm.
Yeah.
I know. I am digging it.
Which cask is that from?
I think this might be from number 11, but didn't actually label my sample, so couldn't say.
Looks like very good.
So sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, because there was a cask there's a sherry cask that was leaking, so we had to empty it into a bourbon cask. But I love the mix of the flavors, so it's going to be great anyway.
Yeah, it was
or
like,
I think so because I love the mix, but
yeah, it was
so-
maybe was it 3 months in first fill sherry
Yeah.
and then moved to first fill bourbon?
yeah,
It's a great combination, like having a sherry start and then a bourbon finish. Actually, I think nobody's doing that
Yeah.
yeah.
for no reason. Sounds good. Maybe you want to change. Maybe you want to do that, like with another couple of sherry casks and refill them to have like a batch of
Oh,
the
we have quite a few leaky ones.
sherry accident casks version.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of distilleries turn around their accident stories to make a bottling, like the
Yeah.
winter Glenfiddich stuff, or I don't know, from crashed warehouses.
Snow Phoenix.
Yeah, Snow Phoenix. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, didn't we get a tasting at your?
No, I think Sim's got 2 pots.
Yeah,
of it.
Sims maybe got some.
But no, I don't think I've ever tasted it. Maybe one day. But probably not.
Look at them cute casks.
Oh,
Do you know where? I don't suppose you know where they're getting their virgin oak casks from, do you?
No, I don't know. I can just have a look if I think like the standard, your usual suspects, Kentucky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can have a look into the warehouse. Jeez. It's a high proof thingy. I think it's 55. Yeah.
Nice.
Still a good summer whiskey though. World Cooperage, American Oak Traditional Premium Plus. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, yeah, I'm quite excited. I'm going to start doing a few tastings on the island. Getting to pick out a few things. But yeah, it is a bit tricky choosing everything from Vin Monopole. But yeah, I think I'm going to do one in about 3 weeks. And so then I've got a Petit Vec, which I think is 27 or something. Diageo one. And then, yeah, I've basically just gone for getting as wide a range of flavors as I possibly can. So I've got like Michter's Rye, Petit Vec, a Deanston Sherry, and Octomore.
So Andrea is our bad jokes ministry today. Usually Patty's doing the bad jokes. So I have to excuse her. So clearly somebody's jumping in.
That's very good.
Doing the dad jokes.
It's nice that she's excluded the R because a lot of people just call it Feddie.
So who are you doing the tasting for? Is it like in a cafe or in a pub or in the distillery or?
It'll be in the distillery, yeah. So just people visiting the island. So yeah, we'll maybe do a pure round first and then sit down for a tasting. Has anyone done a elmwood cask before?
A what?
Elmwood.
Oh Jesus! I think you got me. I'm not sure what elmwood is. I just have to check.
Elm's a tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elm Street.
Yeah.
Ah,
Named after a tree.
okay.
Wait. Could be our nightmare cask.
Is that a real wood type?
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what it would taste like in a cask.
Ah, Ulmen. Okay, Ulmenholz. I just had to check. I didn't know what it is. Elm Street. Cool. That makes sense. So they're coming back to you, Andrea.
Got lots of bad jokes.
I shouldn't open that bottle. That's so good.
I think Craig, when you first told me about the distillery here, your message auto-corrected it to Feddie.
I did it.
Feddie Distillery. Yeah, makes sense.
Feddie. Yeah, because the idea was it was Feddie so that it was easier to pronounce than Fea. But now I think most of the packages we get are addressed to Feddie Distillery.
I think you have a new fan.
Yeah.
Maybe Louis, your sexy leg picture worked out too well.
My leg picture.
Don't hurt yourself, buddy. Right. Yeah. Perfect. Good stuff. Yeah, I think you want to call it a night, and we can have a little after hours backstage dram, and leave Andrea to it, and the other guys.
Not invited.
Seems needlessly exclusionary, but
before Louis starts undressing more, which is quite funny because you're the only one who's sober, I think. All right, good stuff. Okay, so I'll do the saying goodnight in German. Although I can actually do it in English. I think nobody made it all through this without proper English. Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Really happy that we had Iona, Craig, and Louis from the Feddie Distillery here having a relaxed night, not out or in, sort of virtual out / hopefully soon again in face-to-face conversation. So yeah, have a great night, and hopefully we'll see each other soon for the next live stream, and new videos coming up soon, obviously, and a lot more on the road videos, because there's something more to come that I will reveal soon as everything is set up with my plans on the road. Okay, guys, I'll say goodbye, and I'll leave the mic to you. First, Louis, and then Craig Iona to say goodbye, and we'll chat in the backstage in a minute.
All right, cheers.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.